My name is Emily Grace Harper, and I'm 28 years old, born and raised in the dusty, sun-soaked town of Willow Creek, Texas. Growing up, I thought I had it all. A family that owned Harper's Grill, the heart and soul of our little community, where locals gathered for greasy burgers, sweet tea, and gossip after church on Sundays. The diner wasn't just a business, it was a legacy, passed down from my great-grandparents, a symbol of everything the Harper name stood for. But for me, that legacy was a cage. My parents, Linda and Tom Harper, and my older sister, Claire, treated me like I was invisible, a burden they couldn't wait to get rid of. They called me a dreamer, a failure, said I never live up to their expectations. At 18, they threw me out of the house with nothing but a worn-out backpack, $200 in crumpled bills from diner tips, and a heart full of hurt. I was their daughter, but to them, I was nothing. You won't believe what they did to me, or how I came back to turn their world upside down. Can you imagine your own family betraying you like that? If this story grabs you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment with your own story of overcoming betrayal. Trust me, it gets crazier. Let's dive in. Willow Creek was the kind of place where everyone knew your name, your business, and your family's history. Harper's Grill sat right on Main Street, its neon sign glowing like a beacon, drawing in truckers, families, and high school kids after football games. The walls were lined with black and white photos of my great-grandparents flipping burgers in the 1950s, my grandparents hosting chili cook-offs in the 70s, and my parents beaming at the ribbon cutting when they remodeled in the 90s. It was more than a diner. It was a piece of Texas history, and I loved it. I spent my childhood bussing tables, refilling ketchup bottles, and memorizing orders for the regulars. I dreamed of running it one day, maybe even turning it into a chain with Harper's Grills all over Texas. But my parents had other plans. Mom, Linda, was the queen of appearances. She wore her Sunday best every day, her hair perfectly curled, her smile practiced for the church crowd. Dad, Tom, was the gruff one, always barking orders at the cooks but charming the customers with his stories. And then there was Claire, my older sister by 3 years, the golden child. Claire was everything I wasn't. Blonde, bubbly, the homecoming queen who could do no wrong. She was the cheerleader who led Willow Creek High to state championships, the one who got a new car for her 16th birthday, while I got a lecture about earning my keep. At 18, I was the quiet one, the bookworm who stayed late at the diner, scrubbing counters and counting tips, saving every penny for a future my parents didn't believe in. When I was 16, I started noticing how they treated me differently. Claire got new clothes, private tutors, and trips to Dallas for shopping sprees. I got hand-me-downs and extra shifts at the diner. I didn't mind the work. I loved the diner. The smell of frying bacon, the chatter of the regulars, the way the jukebox played Johnny Cash on repeat. But every time I tried to share my ideas, like adding a breakfast taco menu or hosting live music nights, Mom would roll her eyes. Emily, stick to cleaning tables. Leave the big ideas to Claire. Dad was worse. He'd grunt and say, "You're not cut out for this, kid. You're no leader." At 18, I overheard the conversation that broke me. I was wiping down booths after closing when I heard Mom and Dad in the back office. "Claire's the future of this place," Mom said. "When she turns 25, we'll sign the diner over to her. She's got the charm, the vision." Dad agreed. "Emily? She's too soft, too dreamy. She'll never make it." I stood there, my hands shaking, the rag dripping soapy water onto the floor. I wasn't even in their plans. I confronted them the next day, begging for a chance to prove myself. Mom laughed, a cold, sharp sound. "Prove yourself? Emily, you're ordinary. Claire's the star."
The final blow came when I was 18. I'd worked my tail off to get accepted into a community college in Austin, hoping to study business and come back to help run the diner. I showed them my acceptance letter, so proud I could barely speak. But Dad barely looked up from his coffee. "We're not paying for that. Claire's wedding is next year, and that's our priority." Claire's wedding to her high school sweetheart, a banker's son named Ethan, was all they cared about. I was crushed, but I kept going, working double shifts to save for tuition. Then, one night, Claire found a letter I'd written to a friend, venting about how unfair it all was, how they favored her, how they made me feel worthless. She showed it to Mom and Dad, and that was it. They called it disrespect and betrayal. Dad pointed to the door. "If you hate this family so much, get out." Mom didn't even look at me. Claire smirked. I packed a backpack, took the $200 I'd saved, and left. I swore I'd never come back, not until I could make them regret it. Leaving Willow Creek was like ripping out a piece of my heart. I moved to Austin, a city that felt like a different planet with its skyscrapers, hipster coffee shops, and college kids everywhere. I rented a tiny room in a rundown apartment, worked 2 jobs, waitressing at a barbecue joint by day, cleaning offices at night, and enrolled in night classes at Austin Community College. Every day was a grind. I'd wake up at 5 a.m., study until my eyes burned, work until midnight, and do it all again. I missed the diner, the smell of fresh coffee, the sound of the bell jingling when customers walked in. But more than that, I missed the idea of family, even if mine had never really been mine. I tried reaching out once, about a year after I left. It was Christmas, and I was feeling nostalgic, thinking maybe they'd softened. I called home, my hands shaking as the phone rang. Claire picked up. "What do you want, Emily?" she said, her voice cold. "You're not part of this family anymore." She hung up before I could say another word. I checked her Instagram later, pictures of her at the diner, posing with Mom and Dad, captioned, "Family first." I cried myself to sleep that night. But it lit a fire in me. I wasn't going to beg for their love. I was going to build something better. Years passed. Every so often, I'd hear news from Willow Creek through old high school friends. Claire was running the diner now, and it wasn't going well. She'd changed the menu, swapping out beloved classics like chicken fried steak for fancy avocado toast that locals didn't trust. Regulars stopped coming, and the Yelp reviews were brutal, not the same Harper's Grill. My parents, too stubborn to admit Claire was in over her head, kept pouring money into it, taking out loans to cover her mistakes. I felt a pang of guilt. After all, that diner was my home too, but it was drowned out by the memory of their rejection. They'd chosen Claire over me, and now they were paying for it. I tried to focus on my own life. I graduated with my business degree at 22, a moment that should have been triumphant. But there was no one to cheer for me. No family in the stands, no proud parents taking photos. I celebrated alone with a $5 pizza and a cheap bottle of wine, toasting to myself, to Emily Harper who did it anyway. I landed a job at a small marketing firm in Austin, helping local businesses with their branding. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a start. I worked on campaigns for taco stands and boutique shops, learning how to turn small dreams into big successes. Still, every night I'd lie awake, replaying Mom's words, "You're ordinary," and Dad's cold dismissal. I wasn't just fighting for a career, I was fighting to prove I was more than they ever saw. Then, everything changed. It was a humid summer day in Austin, the kind where the air feels like a wet blanket. I was 27, sitting in my tiny apartment when my phone rang, an unknown number from Dallas. I almost ignored it, thinking it was a spam call, but something made me pick up. It was a lawyer named Margaret Colin, her voice crisp and professional. "Miss Harper, I'm contacting you regarding the estate of Evelyn Marie Harper, your grandmother." I froze. Grandma Evelyn? I barely knew her. Mom always called her a crazy recluse, said she'd cut ties with the family years ago after a fight with Dad. I'd met her once when I was 10 at a family reunion. She was tall, with sharp blue eyes and a quiet way of watching everyone, like she saw through their facades. She gave me a $20 bill and whispered, "You're tougher than they think, kid." I never saw her again. Margaret explained that Evelyn had passed away at 82, leaving behind a fortune. Not just any fortune, a $10 million estate, including real estate holdings across Central Texas. The biggest shock? She'd left it all to me. Not Mom, not Dad, not Claire. Me. I sat there stunned as Margaret listed the assets. Commercial properties, a ranch outside Waco, and most unbelievably, the land under Harper's Grill. The diner my family worshipped, the one they'd chosen Claire to run, was built on land now owned by me. Evelyn had been watching me from a distance, Margaret said, tracking my journey through college and my early career. She admired your resilience, the lawyer said. She saw herself in you, a fighter who didn't need anyone's approval. I hung up the phone and cried, not out of sadness, but because someone had believed in me when my own family hadn't. I met Margaret in her Dallas office a week later, a sleek high-rise that felt worlds away from Willow Creek's dusty streets. She laid out the details. Evelyn had built her wealth in the 1980s, buying up land during Texas's oil bust when prices were dirt cheap. She turned it into a real estate empire, leasing properties to businesses, including Harper's Grill. My parents had been paying rent to her for years, never knowing she was keeping tabs on me. The will was airtight. Evelyn's signature, dated a year ago, named me the sole heir. I walked out with a folder full of documents and a new reality. I was a multi-millionaire. But more than the money, I held the deed to the land under the diner. My family's pride and joy was in my hands. I didn't rush back to Willow Creek. I spent a year planning, working with Margaret and a team of financial advisors to understand my new reality. I learned about property management, tax laws, and investment strategies, soaking up every detail like I had in my college classes. I moved into a modest condo in Austin, nothing flashy, but a far cry from my old apartment with its leaky faucet and peeling paint. I kept my inheritance a secret, even from friends. I wasn't ready to face my family, not yet. I wanted my return to be perfect, a moment they'd never forget. Harper's Grill was in trouble. Claire's mismanagement had driven away customers. The diner's Instagram, once full of proud posts, now had comments like, "Bring back the old menu," and "This place is a mess." My parents were drowning in debt, taking out loans to keep the lights on. They were still paying rent to Evelyn's estate, now my estate, without a clue. I checked the books. They were 6 months behind on payments. I could have evicted them right then, but that wasn't enough. I wanted them to see me, really see me, for the first time. The opportunity came with the diner's 50th anniversary celebration, a big event planned to revive the Harper legacy. The whole town was invited. Willow Creek's mayor, the high school football coach, even the local paper was covering it. Claire was set to give a speech, probably some nonsense about family pride. I decided that was my moment. I spent weeks preparing, working with Margaret to finalize the paperwork. I bought a tailored navy blazer and a crisp white blouse, a far cry from the stained apron I'd worn as a teenager. I practiced my speech in the mirror, my voice steady, my eyes burning with purpose. This wasn't just revenge, it was justice. The day of the event, Harper's Grill was packed. The parking lot was full of pickup trucks and SUVs, the air thick with the smell of barbecue and anticipation. Inside, the diner was decorated with red, white, and blue streamers, a nod to Texas pride. The jukebox played Willie Nelson, and tables were crowded with familiar faces, neighbors, old teachers, people who'd known me as the other Harper girl. Claire stood at a makeshift stage, her blonde hair perfect, her smile forced. Mom and Dad sat in the front, beaming with pride despite the diner's struggles. I slipped in quietly, standing near the back, my heart pounding. Claire's speech was predictable. "Harper's Grill is about family," she said, her voice dripping with fake sincerity. "It's our legacy, our heart, and I'm so proud to carry it forward." That was my cue. I stepped forward, holding a manila folder with the deed and Evelyn's will. The crowd parted, whispers spreading like wildfire. "Funny you mentioned legacy, Claire, because this diner, it's mine now." The room went silent. I held up the deed. Grandma Evelyn left me everything. The land under this diner, her entire estate. I own Harper's Grill. Mom gasped, her hand clutching Dad's arm. Dad stood, his voice shaking. "Emily, what are you talking about? This is our business." I didn't flinch. I handed the folder to Margaret, who'd come with me, and she passed out copies of the will to the crowd. Evelyn Harper named me her heir. She saw what you never did, that I'm more than ordinary. You threw me out with nothing, but I'm back, and I'm calling the shots. The crowd was stunned. Old friends looked at me with wide eyes. Some clapped, others whispered. Claire tried to argue, saying it was a mistake, but Margaret shut her down, explaining the legal details in her calm, authoritative tone. I wasn't done. I'd spent the last year quietly buying out the diner's loans, working with a bank to take over its debts. I own the business too. Harper's Grill is mine, lock, stock, and barrel. I looked at Claire. You can stay on as a waitress if you want. I'm hiring. The crowd gasped again, some laughing nervously. Claire stormed out, tears streaming down her face. Mom and Dad begged me to talk privately, but I held firm. You had your chance to keep me in this family. You chose Claire. Now you get to live with that choice. I offered them a deal, retire quietly or face eviction from the property. They chose retirement, their pride shattered. That day changed everything. I took over Harper's Grill, not to destroy it, but to rebuild it. I brought back the old menu, chicken fried steak, pecan pie, all the classics, while adding my own touches like breakfast tacos and live music nights with local country bands. The diner thrived again, and I turned it into a franchise, opening new locations in Austin, San Antonio, and Houston. Harper's Grill became a Texas staple once more, but this time it was my vision, my legacy. I also started the Emily Harper Foundation, a community center in Willow Creek for kids who've been told they're not enough. I wanted them to know what I learned the hard way. Your worth isn't defined by the people who reject you.
My family faded into the background. Claire moved to Dallas with Ethan, posting less on social media, her confidence shaken. Mom and Dad sold their big house and retired to a small condo, living off their savings. I don't hate them anymore. Hate takes too much energy, and I'm too busy building something new. But I don't need them either. They had their chance to be my family, and they chose otherwise. I hear from old friends that they talk about me now, telling anyone who listened that I was always special. I don't need their approval. I never did. The lesson here isn't just about revenge. It's about resilience. When your own family underestimates you, when they tell you you're nothing, you don't have to prove them right. You can fight, claw your way up, and build something bigger than their dreams. I did, and if I can, so can you. Never let anyone define your worth. Your failure might just come back to own everything they thought was theirs. What do you think of my story? Have you ever been underestimated and proved everyone wrong? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. If this hit home, smash that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more twisted revenge stories. Who else needs to hear this? Let's show them what we're made of.